Hey guys, I'm back. Welcome to another live show, another live She Knows Arsenal. Make sure you guys are liking the video and subscribing to the channel on your way in. And most importantly, getting into the chat and letting me know what you guys are thinking and feeling. Oh my gosh, we have so much to discuss. Tomorrow we go to Old Trafford. Games have started. No Eze. Listen, I had my little respite from Arsenal, whatever, for about a week. And it was great to kind of disconnect. The only time we really spoke was after the preseason game against Bilbao. And so that gave us a little lift, but I do feel like there's still an element of what's the word? Maybe trepidation or anxiety or whatever around, our business. I kind of figured, the way that things are set up this weekend, that because our rivals are playing easier games, they will kind of walk through those games and it'll add more fuel to that fire. And then it'll get even worse if we, for some reason, do not beat Manchester United tomorrow. We're not, no matter how good or how bad we are, or how good or how bad they are, we tend not to do well at Old Trafford. We also, just in general, I don't think travel well and play well up north. If you think about some of the places we've struggled over the last couple of years in particular, and then even historically in some circumstances, we're not particularly good at the Etihad, Anfield, St. James, Goodison, Old Goodison, and Old Trafford. So I'm trying to be as realistic as I possibly can be when it comes to this game, especially because, this is my personal 9/11. My personal 9/11 is playing Manchester United in any sort of circumstance and not winning. So, but I do sense that we may drop points. And it will start a frenzy, at least online, but I don't necessarily know how bad it's gonna be. Um, so I'm trying to keep it as realistic as possible that there's a world where I could see us winning, there's a world where I could see us dropping points, but that's never really set our season in stone because no matter where we are and where they are, it's a tough game for us, you know. But I do expect there to be a meltdown, especially because there's like those extra layers of the Eze situation. But before we get into the Eze situation, I just want to say that I fucking missed you guys. I missed you guys so much. I missed my dogs, but I missed you guys as well. And it was hard not to talk to you guys during that time because I felt like I was like wanting to go live and wanting to chit chat, but I needed that break just so I could try to get through this first part of the season because I know it's going to be difficult. So yeah, but just with the trip in mind um to Old Trafford, I do think that, you know, looking at the beginning of our schedule, it's not easy, but in isolation, the game at Old Trafford is what it always is and what it'll probably be for a while. We're going to come up against a team that's going to try to defend, and then they're going to try to hit us on the counter. And they will play on their 12th man and vibes and energy and new signings to unsettle us. And it's going to be up to us to be professional, go there, and win the game. In games like this, it does feel like all the extra evens the playing field ever so slightly. It rarely feels like we are way better than them, even if on paper it does look like we're way better than them, or, the way that, how things are set up, even if we are 20 points above them in the table, it does kind of feel like the rivalry of this game and them being at Old Trafford and stuff evens things out. So I'm um cautiously optimistic, but also preparing for any situation. Um, I know that there were some people kind of, I call it, you know, what is the word? Where you're basically like dooming it ahead of time. Like, and I saw people like searching the photos for Zubamendi. Is he fit? Is he not? Kind of trying to get people to get worried about it, calling themselves kind of being detectives, but in reality, they were looking for something to be scared about. Zubamendi's fit. Hopefully he starts. He should be starting. There's no reason not to start him. United don't have a particularly physical, in my opinion, they don't have the most physical midfield. I could understand more if you I don't know. They have some guys that will, Ugarte and all that kind of stuff. But essentially, do I think that Zubamendi's going to get ran over by their midfield? Is there going to be somebody that runs straight by him because they're just so athletic and so fast? No, not really. So I do think that Zubamendi will start. Hopefully, I don't see any reason why not. The only there's a couple of questions, but I think the main one on people's minds is Arteta going to start Gyökeres? And I think he kept his cards pretty close to his chest in his presser, saying, Gyökeres is only played a couple of games with us. He didn't have as long of a preseason. He's adapted well, but let's see what we do. I kind of think Gyökeres needs to start the game. To give us the best chance at beating them. But I wouldn't be surprised if I saw Havertz. I would not be surprised if I saw Havertz. So yeah, I'm wondering. And I wonder, like, what you guys think about that. Do you guys think that he'll start Gyökeres, or do you think he'll start Havertz? I do think that if Arteta goes brave in midfield, he'll go safe up front. I do expect to see Martinelli and Saka. Saka, of course, is the obvious one, but I think he'll go with Martinelli because of his defensive solidity and all that bull. So maybe Havertz will start as well. So yeah, we will see about that as well. But outside of that, then you just have the fullback positions, and I'm kind of okay with anybody. I do think that Caliuri should start. Because he's been better than Miles in preseason, and Miles looks like he needs some help, just in terms of like take him out of the firing line, let him get fully fit. He did not look great in preseason. That doesn't mean he's not a great player, because I know some would be like, "Oh, you hate Miles, you hate Miles." No, I don't hate Miles. He just was not good in preseason. It just is what it is. And Califury looks like he's ready to go. So just start with Califury maybe, and then it's up for grabs, I guess, on the other side. But if I had my druthers, I'd probably go with Timber. But he didn't play as much as White did in preseason. So, there's that. I think Gabriel has to start whether he's fully fit or not, though. So yeah. Lawrence says Calafiori should defo start whenever Arsenal looks fluid. Calafiori is at the heart of it. And I think, like, if you play Martinelli, I think in any scenario, because we actually didn't see Calafiori play with Noni either, but I think, for the betterment of Martinelli and for the, you know, survival of the left-hand side, I think maybe Calafiori is a better choice, just in terms of like you said, the fluidity and what he gives going forward. And he started the beginning of last season, and so I don't see a reason why, outside of injury or fitness permitting, why he wouldn't start this season. I think Arteta put a lot on the line last season, kind of prioritizing a left back over anything else. You could have taken that 37 million or whatever we spent on Calafiori. I know we needed a left back, but we fucking needed a forward as well. And you could have utilized that money to get a forward, but you did it to get this special unicorn of a left back. And so I wouldn't, like, outside of fitness concerns, I do think Calafiori would start anyway. So, Calafiori will help Martinelli by overlapping a little bit. Martinelli needs as much help as he can possibly get. So, yeah, I do think that, Calafiori will and should start. And I think there's a chance that White will start as well, because Timber did not play a lot and he looked rusty against Bilbao. And if maybe if you need to offset the rustiness of maybe a Gabrielle that maybe you're maybe not taking a risk with per se, but you're kind of playing him knowing that he didn't have the full preseason. Maybe you offset that with a fitter White instead of a less fit Timber, because it is what it is. Both of them tore their hamstrings or whatever the fuck they did at the end of the season. Um, and so you're going to have to trust some of the players that maybe weren't the stars of last season, but we know they have a lot of quality and they're fitter. So that would be Calafuri and Wine in my mind. Valeria says, I would start Timber and Madueke and Timber on the left just to see something fresh, and Ben and Saka on the right. They have a great combination. Welcome back. Thank you for welcoming me back. I kind of hear the Timber shout on the left, but I also think that some of the things that we do needs to be about how we are going to break down the other team. And I do feel like as good of as Timber is defensively, he is our best fullback. It's not even really that close. I'm going to be really honest with you. Once Tommy left the club, there's no question around defensively who is our best fullback. It is Timber, it is Timber, it is Timber, it is Timber, it is Timber. So I get wanting to put him on the left-hand side for security's sake. Get that. My only thing with that is Timber going forward on the left-hand side is basically not going to happen. Like nothing is going to happen on that side. You're going to have two right footers on the left-hand side with him and Rice on that side, all wanting to cut in order to progress the ball forward. For me, it's a little bit of like so how are we going to unlock them? How are we going to break them down with Timber on that side? So if Timber starts, I think it needs to be on the right. And again, you spend 37 million on a left back and you prioritize that over a forward 2 summers ago. I do expect him to start playing games for Arsenal in Califiori. So I get your point, starting Timber on the left, and maybe even Madueke, but I think Martinelli's going to start. And if Martinelli starts, we need Calafiori on that side because he's the only one that helps balance out that side. And Chovis says, I think Timber still has levels to his attacking game that he hasn't showed us yet. And I agree with that. I actually do agree with that sentiment. I think what people are doing online, at least, are putting Ben and Timber into these 2 separate categories. They have these 2 separate categories of Ben's good going forward, Timber's good at defending. And I actually don't agree with that at all, to be honest. I think Timber's skill set going forward is much different than Ben's. Ben's is more passing and he does the overlapping. But I think Timber has a lot to give in terms of his ball progression and his dribbling and his press resistance that we don't take advantage of because we don't fucking let anybody dribble. So I actually think Timber does have levels to go up. And I think if we played a different way, we would see it more. But the only player as a fullback that I feel like gets creative freedom, is more the left back than the right back. But I don't actually categorize Ben White as this attacking demon and Timber as this defensive demon. I actually think Timber in general is a better footballer than Ben White. He may not, how you look at like different, like a diagram that has the 2 players qualities overlapped over each other, and then you can see who's higher than the other person. I actually think probably the only place in which Ben White is better than Timber is probably passing. That's just about it. But I would imagine in every other category, he's superior. And so he is the superior player. You can't have one thing that you're better than another player at, and they're better than you at everything else, but you're somehow equal, better, or similar. You're not. So Timber to me is an A player. Ben White is a B plus. Both very good players. Timber is a better player. Timber has more to give going forward. We just need to, I think, him and Saka need to build a different type of relationship than he has with Ben. And we need to allow him to carry the ball forward. When he carries the ball, what tends to happen, and this happens with a lot of our players, actually happened with Ethan as well in preseason on that right-hand side. when they carry the ball and they get past that first line, there's nobody running in behind on the second line. And so they run into a wall because they run into all the rest of their teammates because their teammates are not moving. you know? So it makes it more difficult when you get the ball and you start dribbling and you beat the man, nobody's making a run. So you just run into them and then you end up either giving the ball away or passing backwards or whatever. And so we don't actually do a lot of ball progression through carrying. So I can imagine why it's more difficult for those types of moves to come off because nobody moves. So, yeah, you just know the United defense will shit the bed when they see Okra start tomorrow. We need that. Timber is a baller and White is intelligent. Timber is mad underrated. Um, let's see. Not gonna lie, I don't mind Califiori starting. Hakimi isn't amazing defensively, but PSG thrive from his ability going forward. Same with someone like Trent. I think we'll be fine with Calafiori. Um, Beckham, Beckham, leave him alone. They're back from the kennel, and I miss them so much. But yeah, the I think ultimately we need to find different ways of being more fluid in attack. That probably is just Calafiori's thing with us. I think he is probably more suited to whatever we want to do in terms of going forward. Guys, let me know if I'm going in and out because I can kind of see maybe I'm getting 2 seconds. Let's see. Okay. Shit. Let's see. How can we fix? It literally went away. Like it fully went gone. That's fucking crazy. I think I'm back now. Okay. I think you guys can see me now, but I just want to make sure. Check myself. Yeah, I'm there. Okay, so I think where was the question? Hold on. I saw the thing about Calafiori and now I lost it. Let me see if I can find it again. Oh, the Calafiori starting being kind of similar to Hakimi. I just think some of the things that we want to do needs to be about hurting the other team instead of trying to keep them from hurting us. And I think that maybe the lack of confidence in our attack has made us a lot more defensive and a little bit more pragmatic. And so the pragmatic thing would be to maybe play Timber on the left and White on the right, or, because Calafiori is going to get beat. But I feel like the best example of what Calafiori adds to this team is what he did against Manchester City, which he's pretty much one of our only players that has X factor, which is pretty sad because he is a defender. But him and Gabriel had that hiccup at the beginning of the game where I just don't think they had the right positioning. Holland runs through, they score early, but we actually had the ability to come back and score because Calafiori just puts the ball in the back of the net as a defender. And so I do think that sometimes we need to take into consideration that, well, if we're a good side, yeah, of course we want to keep the score down, but don't we believe that we're going to score, as well? So why are we so afraid to have a player out there that's maybe not as defensively solid? Arteta did not, if he bought Calafiori, he knows him well. He has to feel confident using him despite his defensive frailties. So yeah, I'm just saying, like, if you prioritize a defender over an attacker 2 summers ago, then you kind of need to start using him and not be afraid of, whatever defensive repercussions happen because we're conceding anyway, you know? So you might as well have somebody out there that can create, chaos in the opposition's box. I just worry with us on transition, especially when Bruno just spams those balls over the top of the defense. I just think that we're susceptible to that no matter what. We've been susceptible to the transition since 22, 23. Nothing has changed. We've become more, I think, risk averse in the way that we attack. So, maybe we don't see those transitions as much, but last season it basically was like a 50-50. If you took the ball off of us in our attacking in their defensive third, our attacking third, whatever, it was like a 50-50 chance if you scored. So I just feel like at this stage, like, we're always going to be susceptible. So we have to figure out ways to make us more dangerous because it's always going to be the case that they can just come down one time and score. That's been the case for like 3 seasons now. So, the only thing that's changed is our inability to attack, so yeah. Let's see. Jess, why do you think United fans are more confident than they will win against Arsenal, but when they face City and Liverpool, they expect a loss or hope to win? Why aren't Arsenal at that level? Well, I mean, our record there is not good. I feel like that's pretty much simple. We still go there and shit the bed, no matter, like I said at the beginning of the show, whether they're good or we're bad or they're good. We pretty much do not win there, which I don't think is the case for City and Liverpool. So Marco also makes a good point that the United fans are always confident, and they are, So I think at the end of the day, like, until you get to the point where you go to people's home grounds and you score lots of goals and you embarrass them, they're going to think that they can get something. And under Mikel, that hasn't necessarily been untrue. It hasn't been untrue. It's really a crapshoot. You can see any of those results. Truly, so yeah. We haven't slapped them at OT ever. Never. So if you've never done it, why would they expect it to happen all of a sudden? Like, they were at their lowest and we were at our pretty much our highest. And those games were still very up in the air. I think the most that we've gotten at Old Trafford since Mikel has been the coach is not the 1-0 win, or I'm not sure. So, because we drew last season 1-1, lucky not to lose that. We won 1-0 the season prior. And the season before that, we lost 3-1. So, and I think maybe the season before that, we lost 2-1 or something like that. I think it was the game Emil scored, and then they scored twice or something like that. And then the year before that, I think with no fans, we won 1-0. So, yeah, I think that range of results would give a Manchester United fan an idea that we could probably get something, So, it's just not a ground that we do particularly well at. So, but yeah, I mean, listen, I think the one positive that we can look at is, you know, although that they've added good players, they haven't been perfect so far, so they're not like in their flow yet. We're not technically in ours, but they're not in theirs either, and that they didn't get Baliba. I did think, if they get somebody like a Baliba type player, then they will solve some of their midfield problems. They still have a goalkeeper issue. And I don't really think their defenders are all that great. I know that Lenny Euro and Aiden Heaven, they're trying to make them into, but I'm like, you still got Delict in these guys. So, I think they're still, susceptible midfield wise. We should be dominating that. So we should feel confident. It's just up in the air when you go to Old Trafford. You just never really know. Score predictions just in chat. If I'm going optimistic, I'll say 2-1, but my heart is saying 2-2. I just have this, I just think the elements even things out at Old Trafford, whether that's the referee or all of a sudden we just lose our shit. I don't know. I'm going 2-2. Um, let's see, their midfield, CBs, and goalkeeper are not it. We should definitely be confident. The only thing about their midfield and CBs and goalkeepers are not it is we come up against teams quite often that have bad midfields, bad goalkeepers, and bad, defenders, and we can't put the ball in the back of the net. And so I think my only trepidation is about us putting the ball in the back of the net. Now, hopefully Jokeris changes that. And I think that's what's up in the air right now is how different is Jokeris going to make us? Is he going to make us more of a surefire kind of like United traditionally are in the big six, but I think outside of like maybe Chelsea, Liverpool, and City, I look at pretty much everybody else as like the type of team that's going to sit back and try to counter us. So is he the type of player that's going to help us from kind of getting into that? They get one chance, like we get a couple chances, we don't put it away, then they come down one time and score, and then we're fucked. So is he going to be the difference? Because I feel like that's the only player that we can really count on to make a super big difference because he's a striker. I don't know what Madueke is going to bring. I really don't. So yeah. To be honest, these away games are the ones we kind of need Jokeris to get those crucial goals. The mid teams at home, I kind of think for the most part, we're okay. I actually was saying like on Twitter earlier that I'm never under Mikel. I'm not that worried about the big games. I think we'll be pretty competitive in those for the most part. Um, now, do I think we're going to lose our Big Six record this season? Yes, I do. I think we'll lose it this season. But will we be super competitive in these games? Yes. Are we getting blown away like we did a couple years ago? No. So that's great. But I actually think I'll know more about who we are this season when we play Leeds at home. And somebody was like, yeah, but they're open. And I was like, uh, they won't be open against us at home. The formula is there for teams to get things from us at home. So Leeds will not be open against us. They'll be open everywhere else, but they won't be open for us. So, and we struggled against Leicester and Southampton last season. Home and away. We needed Marino to come save us away from home against Leicester. I know it was the last game of the season, but we kind of struggled against Southampton away. And at home, I think Leicester scored like 2 goals and we had to come back. Southampton, it wasn't as straightforward as it probably should be, so I'll know everything I need to know about Arsenal's evolution when we play against Leeds at home because we need to beat them like 3 or 4-0. It shouldn't be a contest. They shouldn't really get anything. They should be easily like they should come, know that they're fucked, lay down, give us 4 goals, and go home. If Arsenal have improved, we will know it by how we play against the small teams, the smaller teams, not the big 6 games. The big 6 games, we could actually lose a couple of those and win more of the small against the smaller teams and be better off than we were last season. So unfortunately, because of the way that we play, the fact that we don't have that X factor, the fact that other teams can come down one time and score, the fact that we kind of just pass it sideways and backwards around the box, it does make it more difficult for us to beat the smaller teams. And so those are the games I'm really looking at. Because the United game has, to me, away from home, has never been the one that we had to live and die on. It's never that. We can beat them, lose to them, draw to them. At the end of the day, it is what it is. It is the games against Villa, Fulham, Bournemouth, Brighton, Southampton, so yeah. Can we see our first game before we start talking? No, we cannot. We can talk before, after, during, there's no rules. Yeah, we can lose to Liverpool and City 4 times, but if we win against Sheffield and then bunch, we need to beat those teams. I'm telling you, if we win more of those games, we could lose a couple more of the the big 6 games or drop more points in those, but if like, I'm telling you, the Bournemouths, the Brightons, like, the Fulhams, like, I'm watching Brighton and Fulham, and I'm like, "If we don't beat them this season, I'm gonna be so angry because they do not look good." But, if we come up against some sort of mid or low block, then we know what's gonna happen from there, So, um, yeah. Let's see. Our open play XG in the Premier League last season was around 37.6. I heard 39% of our total XG was set pieces and plus two pens. FOTMob says our total was 61.9. So we created under one XG from open play per game. It's really bad. I'm not feeling this team this season. They don't even want to go out this all out this summer. Well, here's the thing. I would say that I think this team has everything it needs to beat United tomorrow. This team is more than good enough to beat United tomorrow. And my main issue is never really about the team per se. I do think the higher ups have let us down this season, which kind of leads us to the conversation about Eze. But when you hear people like online saying things like there's no like evidence or pattern to suggest that it's a foregone conclusion that our window is over, I just feel like it's exhausting having these conversations when somebody will actually sit there and say there's no pattern of Arsenal not getting things done in the window. You know, um I think I told you guys before I went to Hawaii that I felt negative about the Eze deal because if Arsenal want a player, it does not take them 2 weeks to move. I think they kind of wanted him or was kind of putting it out there and then decided at the last minute that they didn't want to have to pay the money or they were fine with what they had. So, you heard that there were, people in the club that didn't understand where Eze would play, which again, it's like if you have to ask yourself where Eze is going to play, you're asking the wrong questions. The questions around Eze is he going to give us the X factor to beat teams? Is he going to be the type of player that's going to show up with big goals and big moments, Is he going to make it easier on Ethan to integrate? Is he going to make it easier on Max Dowman to integrate? Those are the questions. Is he going to be able to help the left-hand side be able to break people down? Those are the questions you should be asking, not where the fuck is he going to play? If you're asking questions like where is he going to play, then I just am like, all right, okay. So um and the worst possible scenario, which is always the worst possible scenario when it comes to Arsenal, it never stops before the worst possible scenario is that Spurs had basically turned their attention to Morgan Gibbs White because Eze was prioritizing us. But now that Morgan Gibbs White fell apart, that deal fell through, and Arsenal are being ridiculous. They're back in for him, and the deal is getting done. So our arch nemesis is going to have Eze, a player that really wanted to come to Arsenal that would solve so many of our problems. And Arsenal are taking the easy way out. They're saying, oh, but Ethan and all this kind of shit. It's like, whatever. Whatever. Okay. Every day, same bullshit. Um, and they didn't mention Ethan when we first started talking about the Eze thing. They're talking about it doesn't have anything to do with Madueke and nothing is going to stop it. And Arsenal really want him and they're going to approach, they're going to approach, they're going to approach. That approach never happened. And all of a sudden it was, well, Ethan signed a new deal and now everything has changed. All right, cool. I just wish at some point we would just do a little bit more. I just wish that we would just go above and beyond once and have almost too much. Then the inevitable Arteta talking at the end of a game, talking about the differences in the two boxes, and we just needed to be, better in the attack, be more clinical and all right. So yeah, at the end of the day, Eze going to Spurs is pretty much the worst case scenario. But from an Arsenal perspective, it's and and where the team is at. It probably in the best case scenario where nobody gets injured, everything goes our way, blah blah blah. It just about can win something, but it's not prepared for the worst case scenarios, and that's usually where we end up. So yeah. Keenan just being overly negative for fuck's sake. I haven't seen what Keenan is saying. Keenan is saying Spurs look really good. If they get Savino and Eze in the door, they're finishing above us. I mean, uh, if I guess you have to think about it this way. Have we improved our attack enough where a couple of attacking signings for other teams does not equalize or kind of eliminate our defensive dominance? And I think we need to be the type of team that has almost a better attack than everybody else and a better defense. Right now, we have a better defense, but it's still questionable how good our attack is in comparison to everybody else's. I said this last summer. I was ridiculed for it, but I wasn't wrong. I'm sorry. You booed me, but I wasn't wrong. Our attack on paper was probably like the fifth or sixth best attack in the league. And you know, we ended up ending that season. Yes, we had injuries, but everybody wanted a left wing, a striker, and maybe even an attacking mid. Why? Because they know that attack is not good enough. It hasn't been good enough for a while. Without help from set pieces and our defenders, and a lot of heavy lifting from some of our midfielders, those forwards are not going to score enough goals. Remember, we said a couple weeks ago, they need to be able to score 50 goals on their own. The attacking three, the starters, the first three, they need to be able to score about 50 goals on their own. Period. No help from Gabrielle, no help from set pieces, no heavy lifting from Declan Rice. They need to be able to score 50 goals on their own. 20 goals from the center forward and 15 and 15 from the other two. That is what elite attacks do. That's the Dembele, that's the and PSG, that is the Barcelona, that is the Liverpool. Elite attacks, that's what it looks like. Now, we needed to improve from last season, and we have. But will some of these teams be able to equalize or kind of, cancel out our good defense by having an attack that's way better than ours? Possibly. Because in the end of the day, those teams are going to beat Burnley 4-0. They're going to beat Wolves 4-0. They're going to beat Bournemouth 4-2. What if we drop a couple of points to those types of teams because our attack is not as good? And then when we play against those teams head to head, we draw. Then what? So, without getting too bogged down and they're so much better than us and I just think in the end of the day, if they have really good attacks and we have a really good defense, we're not that much better than them because ultimately we both have one part. We need to have a really good defense and a really good attack. And right now, we have a really good defense and we probably have a good attack. Not really, really good. Not what we needed. So, yeah, at the end of the day, Spurs, of course, are, going to look better. They're bringing in better players. They're bringing in, really, really good X factor to their team. And I wouldn't be surprised if people had their attacks above ours because on paper they are. Liverpool's attack is better than ours. City's attack is better than ours. Chelsea's attack is better than ours. Maybe even Spurs' attack is better than ours. Shit, maybe Man United's attack is better than ours. Our attack is not that good, So especially getting Gyökeres actually got us to a stage that everybody else was already at. So yeah, but the defense does a lot of heavy lifting. A lot of heavy lifting when it comes to set pieces, keeping scores low, things like that. But yeah, we'll see if the attack is able to bail out the defense a couple of times this season. Newcastle's attack might be better than ours. Thoughts on Rodrigo news, smokescreen. Rodrigo's not coming. Those are my thoughts. I think ultimately it's in the best interest of these kind of like accounts, these media accounts, to keep Arsenal in the race for certain players to keep the clicks going. They know we're desperate. So I don't believe he's coming to us. He may go to City, so we'll see. We aren't signing anyone. Our attack is good enough and has shown itself to be good enough to be all of the top 6. Um, I mean, the attack struggles against the smaller teams, struggles to score against Villa, games like that. So, at the end of the day, I think we are gonna see. At the end of the day gonna end. We are going to see where this attack is gonna get us. But it'd be nice not to have questions about the attack. I think what it comes down to is in the best case scenario, that attack is good enough, but there's still questions because we know what the level of like Martinelli and Havertz is. In the best case scenario, they're going to score goals, but in the worst case, we'll see. But if I'm a Liverpool fan, I have no questions about my attack. I know we're going to add Isak to this, and it's already fucking good. If I go to sleep tonight as a Man City fan, I'm not worried about my attack. I know we went unopposed for Reinders, unopposed for Shirky. We already have the best striker in the league. I'm sorry. Anybody who thinks Isak is better than Holland is smoking crack. We have the best striker in the league being fed by Shirky and Reinders and guys like this. Oh, by the way, we have an abundance of attacking talent in wide areas. Oh, we might add Rodrigo going to sleep. I'm not worried about that. I guess what I would ask you guys is, with our attack, are you are you going to be able to go to sleep at night knowing that we can go to any ground and score? And we will. That's my question. Because last season and the season prior, I knew there were places that we would go that I wasn't 100% sure we would get anything in terms of goals. If you can say without a shadow of a doubt, we'll go to the Etihad and score goals, we'll go to Anfield and score goals, we'll go to Villa Park and score goals, we're going to go to St. James and score goals. Fair enough. I still have questions. John says, would Havertz and Gyökeres work versus a low block? I'll be honest, I don't want to see that shit. I don't. When we go up against a low block, what I want to see is 2 attacking midfielders and 1 DM. That's what I want to see. I don't want to see Havertz and Gyökeres. I don't. I'll be real. Could it work? Potentially. Would I prefer us to pick one of Zubimendi or Rice and put Ethan in there with Odegaard and tell them to just create and do our thing, go forward, attack? Yeah, I'd prefer that. I prefer us to take a fucking defender off and put another attacker on. I don't think that 2 strikers makes you more attacking in every circumstance. And I think we're really overrating Havertz's ability to create from the 10 role or second striker. I think to be a good second striker, I do think you have to have a little bit of finesse about you. I think you have to be more of like, I think Ekitike is really good at it. I think Cunha is probably really good at it. Players that have just a little bit more finesse to their game. Havertz is clunky. So probably not, but in theory, I know we're going to see it at least once. So we'll see how it goes. If Havertz is anywhere other than on the bench, I will be pissed. Overlapping fullbacks versus low blocks for me. If I understand your logic, 2 seasons ago, we had a great attack and defense, but we weren't deep enough. You're saying that even with Glock removing double teams from Saka, still not enough. Are you watching the attacks that are in this league? I think if we were in the Bundesliga or La Liga, it'd be enough, but we're going up against teams that already have those things and have had them for years. So no, I don't think it's enough. I still think we're lacking a superstar on the left. I'm going to be really honest with you guys. I think that's what's missing. I think we're just coming to the big boys table with a striker. You know what I mean? Like Liverpool have had Salah for years. They've had somebody that just makes the attack so much easier because they take the burden off of everybody else by scoring 20 goals a season. Holland's been doing it for 4 or 5 seasons now. I don't know how long he's been here. He's been here for a minute now. We're just barely getting to that table. They have superstars on their bench. We don't. So when I say in terms of like having the type of attack that I know we can go to Anfield and score a couple goals, and I also know that we're going to dismantle the small teams by 4 goals. No, I still think we're lacking something. But is it better than last season? Probably just about, but we still have to see it in full action. So um, a big reason why our attack was really good in the 22-23 season was the system that we were playing. Xhaka made a huge difference, and Jesus made a huge difference. We lost that for 2 seasons, and now we're adding the striker, so now we're kind of back in, like, where we probably have somebody that can score 20 goals a season for us and stuff like that, so let's see. Let's see what happens. I just don't think it's enough. Um, we needed a superstar left winger. I think that was clear at the beginning of the window, and I don't think that that's changed now, just because we know it's not gonna happen. I think it hasn't even been a bad window. I think that's the thing is that I'm going to be honest. I don't think that it's been a bad window. I think it's been a good window, but we didn't need a good window. We needed the unprecedented window that they said. We needed to bring in a Rodrigo level left wing, somebody like that, a Jokeris type striker. Zubimendi's great. We probably could have even added an attacking mid, to be honest, but we haven't, we missed the mark on that. Just because we also just kind of did a lot of backfilling and replacing squad players. Like, to me, Kepa, Norgard, and Mascara, as good as those signings were, especially I think Mascara is probably the best out of the 3 in terms of what we needed in that position. Those are not going to move the needle. The moving the needle signings are Zubimendi and Jokeris, but there's such a question mark around Madueke that I don't know. I don't. We really, really needed that superstar left wing, and we didn't get it. 14 draws turned into 7, which is 1 goal away, for fuck's sake. Let's see. The thing is, this whole Leon needed a striker was actually the case last season, but they failed last summer. In doing so, it has meant that the summer we actually needed a left wing and a striker. We needed both for sure. Hearing that the club potentially didn't want to cash in on Martinelli because he had such a bad season last season, that they knew they wouldn't recoup what they wanted or thought they would, so they're just going to stick with him, is kind of everything that's bad about this club. I feel like they shouldn't. I know they want to recoup a certain amount, but you only spent like 6 million on Martinelli. So it's not pure profit, but it's not like you spent 50 million on him, so you need to get more than that. You know what I mean? So the Martinelli thing is weird to me because he had a bad season. He's not good enough where people want to come in for him, but you're willing to suffer with him anyway, which is still going to hurt us in the long run anyway. So their inability to buy the replacement and to tell these people's agents to find somewhere else to be is what's actually holding us back. People will be more motivated to leave. They'd be more motivated to play well enough to get a good move if they were not so comfortable. And I think there are a lot of people that are super comfortable. It's not just Martinelli, but Martinelli is kind of the spotlight right now because he's the player that's kind of stopping us from getting the player that we need potentially. And then you have like Trossard, so yeah, it's this whole sell to buy is whatever, it's a choice. This good relation just for players to leave on a free is bullshit. Buy his replacement, and tell him to find somewhere else to be. Tell him he's not gonna get playing time. Tell him it's a World Cup year, so if you don't find somewhere to go, you're gonna be fucked because 'cause you're not playing. Um, oh, well, I don't know what to tell them because going into another season with Martinelli as your starting left wing is a choice, you know? You can't mean the same Arteta who kept El Neni, even gave him a new contract. He loves his favorites. Um, let's see. Trossard is good at least. Trossard's gonna score big goals for us off the bench. There's no question. Look at Zinni complaining about playing time when AC Milan was in for him. He did not want to drop his wage demands. Arne Slot came in and won the league with an okay Liverpool team and were expected to finish third. By now, it will be pure profit based on how the accounting works. It's just bullshit. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is about actually replacing players or providing dangerous competition for players while they're here. I think the only time we've seen it is with Ramsdale, really, where they were willing to basically torpedo the beginning of our season by having a circus around Ramsdale and Raya because Arteta wanted Raya so badly. So he bought his replacement on his head top, and it was like crazy, and it was ruthless, and it ended up working in the long haul or in the long term, but it was uncomfy for a while. Why can't we do that in other places? I don't really understand that. Um, Everybody that we brought in replaced somebody that left. Noni replaced Sterling. Mascara replaced Tommy. Norgard replaced Jorginho. Zubamendi replaced someone. So pretty much everybody came in and replaced somebody that had already left. The only player that technically didn't do that is Gyökeres, but just imagine how we would have reacted had Jesus been fit. Do you think Gyökeres would have came in? Probably not. So they have this difficulty finding value and bringing in players that aren't necessarily replacing somebody, but are going to add true competition and would cause friction. Because one, when you bring in somebody like an Eze, that causes friction. So that means that players like Ethan, players like Marino, players like Odegaard are going to actually have to fight for their spot. And so that causes friction and makes people have to work hard. It makes you have to actually have decisions, headaches. To pick players. But then it also causes friction when players want to, because then you're also basically telling them, well, if you don't like it, you can go. And so you don't have these great, easy relationships with agents. They get mad, blah, blah, blah. They agitate. And I think we want to play nicey because we don't have PSR problems. Remember, they're bragging about no PSR problems. We're the fifth most, richest club in the world, bragging about that shit, bragging about how much money we have. But it's not a money thing. It's not a sales thing. They they just don't want to cause any issues. And I don't understand what's the big fucking deal. Bringing in Eze is not going to torpedo the project. It's not. It's going to make people actually have to work hard. And that helps everyone. Arteta has never had a selection headache in his life. This will probably be his first fake selection headache between Gyökeres and Havertz, but it's not no fucking selection headache. It's not a selection headache. Like, be fucking for real. It is not a selection headache. It is, if it becomes one, it's fake. It's not a selection headache. It's not. Um, just with all the attack mid, second striker options, central we have, all of them are lefties. Odegaard, Vieira, probably leaving. Dauman, Winieri, Havertz, Moreno. Yeah, they're all left-footed. But it is what it is. Uh, yeah, Vieira's probably gonna leave. I think the bigger problem for me is that everybody that is creative in this team is left-footed that plays on the right-hand side. Odegaard, whether you like him or not, he is one of our creative players. Saka is creative. Dauman, creative, Ethan creative. All of them are creative and they're all on the other side of the pitch. And it's just leaving the left-hand side. And I'm looking at that and I'm like, the most creative player that plays on the left is Caluri. Do you know how crazy that is to not have any creativity on the left-hand side? And Arteta's never been interested in trying like Odegaard on the left and Rice on the right and stuff like that. So yeah, I think that's is not the left-footedness of it all because we've the best iteration of Arsenal's midfield had two left-footed players in the attacking 8 positions, and that was Xhaka and Odegaard. So it's not really about them being left-footed. It's about all of the players that are creative are on the right-hand side. And yes, they're left-footed, but they're all on the right-hand side. Nobody that's creative exists on the left. And so it leaves us in a situation where we will see it tomorrow. The whole game plan is going to be give it to Saka. And if for some reason Saka cannot get that ball in the back of the net, get his crosses off, we're going to be in trouble. The best creative is actually Zinchenko, ironically. Arteta had a selection headache at the back end of last season when he lost a lot of key players, though, through injury. Y'all know all the teams are just waiting to the last 3 days of the Mercado to buy our deadwood in the cheapest. Thoughts on the Tony Adams stuff? Disagreed with some of the things he said. I think with Tony Adams, I would say that because I've said this before, because this is the first time that this came about. People have questioned the captaincy for a long time, but I just think that when you know nothing else is going to change, you start looking at other low hanging fruit to try to make that the reason. Like, oh, this is the reason. This is the reason. This is the reason. It has to be the captaincy, but I just don't think the captaincy, a piece of elastic, is going to stop people from actually leading. And I also think that if we had just had a better attack, we would have won things by now. I think if Arteta didn't play Rob Holding and he played Kivior, ironically, during the run-in, that we would have won the league in that season. That didn't have anything to do with the captaincy. It wasn't, Odegaard's fault that Ramsdale chucked the ball in the back of our own net against Southampton. I think when you break down every single season, maybe outside of the last one, which was a heavy focus on Odegaard because he played so poorly, there isn't any direct correlation with him being the captain and us not winning things. But I can understand that as a fan looking, you want to see a person that you like with the captaincy. And so if you don't think that the person is captain material, you don't want to see them with it. But it actually doesn't matter what we think. It matters what the locker room thinks, and the locker room likes him and wants him to be the captain. So I just think the captaincy is not for the fans. The captaincy is for the locker room and for the other players. And so as long as they're voting him into the captaincy, then are you also saying that their mentality is not great, or is it just Odegaard? Because they're voting him into the captaincy. They vote on it. There's also a leadership group, and those players are responsible for leading the group as well. That group includes, I think it includes Declan Rice. It includes Jesus as well. So I don't really give a shit about a little piece of elastic on their arm. You're going to lead if you want to, and if you don't, you're not going to. And the just I don't really give a fuck. I think Tony Adams wants to see an Englishman with it on his arm. I think that people like Rice more right now. It is what it is. They could, in theory, like for me personally, if I had my way, I would take the captaincy off of Odegaard and give it to somebody else so we could see if that's the reason why we're not winning. And if we don't win anything, then we can cross that off the list. Just like getting Arteta a striker is about crossing it off the list to see, is it that he doesn't have a striker, is if he's not good enough as a coach. So they could strip him of the captaincy, but I don't think if Rice was captain last season that anything would have fucking changed. We would have still had the injuries that we had, and we still would have lost the games that we lost. When Odegaard wasn't playing, we weren't winning. It was so bad that when he played against Chelsea, people were happy because we were so shit without him. So, yeah, I think it's low-hanging fruit, and it's more of like fans want to see the person that they like with the captaincy. But his teammates are literally voting him into it. So, us. it is what it is. I get that Tony Adams won things and all of that, but it never stops us from saying that Gary Neville is an idiot, does it? We know Gary Neville is an idiot and he's won everything under the sun. So does that not apply across the board, or does it just apply to who's telling you what you like to hear? Because I don't think everything that people say makes a lot of sense, but they could strip him of the captaincy, and I don't think anything would have changed in the last couple of seasons. I really don't. You don't have players that can put the ball in the back of the net. If you have a coach that plays terrible football, if you have a manager that plays Rob Holding in a title race, that's not going to change shit. So I don't know what to tell you. Adams led us to 4 league titles, and Odegaard hasn't led us to anything. Signing players don't guarantee shit if the manager ain't doing what he's paid to do. And I don't think Tony Adams ever played with a team that had a subpar attack. Tony Adams always had a golden attack in front of him. So I kind of get it. He led us to things, but again, if you were a, Manchester United fan, do you listen to everything that Gary Neville says? So why would we listen to everything that one of our legends says just because he says it? Does it, like, I don't get it. I guess because he's saying what people want to hear. So they're like, it's true, it's true, it's true, it's true, it's true, it's true, it's true. But we know that there's been some legends in the past that have said things that we don't necessarily agree with. So they could strip him. It's still not going to change anything. And I agree with Misunderstood Ninja that tactics matter more. Recruitment matters more. If the recruitment was exactly the same and the tactics were exactly the same, what is a piece of elastic going to change? Does a piece of elastic give you superpowers or something? It really doesn't, but maybe, I don't know. I just don't see it like that important, but maybe I think for the fans, they need to see somebody that they like with the armband. Let's see. Now imagine us not getting Rodrigo or just no top left wing. The crash out from the fans will go nuts, rightfully. I mean, the way things are set up now is not set up well. All of our rivals are winning. They're looking good. All of them are looking good. Nobody has looked suspect at all. I know Liverpool had some suspect moments, but they're going to score 3 or 4 goals every single game. So it's not really going to matter. Nobody's going to score 4 goals against them. Right. So in the end of the day, everything is set up for a complete and utter meltdown on Sunday. If we do not beat Manchester United, and also we're not going to buy anyone, because what I'm not going to do is whatever PR comes out after, if we do end up failing to beat Manchester United, whatever PR comes out after that, I'm not going to believe it, because they put out PR briefs after we lost to Tottenham in preseason. Like, they're shameless as fuck. They're shameless as fuck. Like, bruh, they are shameless as fuck. When they did that, I was like, damn, they're under stress. They're under stress. Like, that's crazy. Queso won the game for Liverpool. A player Liverpool won out. How you use the team is important. Well, Slot is a better attacking coach than Mikel Arteta. He gets the best out of his attackers. He made a Gakpo that nobody really rated look like a top player last season. He understands attacking dynamics. He just lets them vibe out. He doesn't, choreograph their every move. He doesn't have one player that has to do everything, so whatever. Adams was a born leader and led us to honors under Graham and Wenger. Right, so the issue is Arteta. Who does Arteta bring on with 10 minutes to go and score at 1-1? It should be Eze, but whatever. Jessica is so biased because she rates Odegaard highly. She defends him, but if Havertz was captain, she would support Tony Adams' opinion. But he's not, so how do you know that? How do you know? You're saying you clocked me, but you can't clock somebody with a hypothetical. Clocking somebody literally is like catching them in something, and you haven't caught me in anything because you're using a hypothetical up against what's actually happening right now. I've never been somebody that is like thing about the captaincy. And I've said before, if I chose the captain, I would not have chose Odegaard. You can go back in my old videos. I would have chosen somebody else because I don't think he's a natural leader. But do I actually think that the reason why we haven't won up until this point is because Odegaard is captain? No. The tactics have sucked. We haven't had a striker. We haven't had players that can put the ball in the back of the net. We lack X factor. Those things are more important than a piece of elastic on somebody's arm. So you haven't clocked me. You're using a hypothetical up against something that's actually happening. So you don't actually know what my opinion would be if Havertz was captain, but he would never be captain. So it'll never happen. So your hypothetical didn't do anything. Semenyo must move to the number 9. Man has crazy ball striking. You always defend players you like. I just don't agree that the captaincy is the reason why we haven't won anything. It's just that simple. You could strip him of the captaincy tomorrow. I would not lose sleep over it. It's not because it does not matter. I think if you gave it to Rice or you gave it to Gabriel, it would make the fans feel better. But ultimately, if the tactics are not right and we can't score goals, it doesn't fucking matter. That's what I'm saying. Of course, I defend Odegaard. He's one of my favorite players, but I would not have chosen for captain, and I don't give a shit if he gets stripped. I really don't care. It's not going to change anything. If we don't have a star left wing, I don't care about the captaincy. Telling you right now, it does not matter to me. It's not about the captaincy. Odegaard is just not good enough. I agree with Jess on the captain's decision. It's not that deep. I just think that in the end of the day, because people do not like Odegaard, they want they're just like, oh my gosh, we have to get him out. And I think retroactively, because he's captain, they know he's going to play. But your club didn't even buy Eze for you guys to replace him with, remember? The whole point of buying Eze was to get Odegaard out of the position because that's what you guys were saying. So your club didn't even bring the player that you wanted to take him out of the position. So it doesn't matter if he has a captaincy or not, he's going to play. So, and what does that go back to? Does that go back to the captaincy or does that go back to recruitment? It goes back to recruitment. Like, I don't know what to tell you. The captain reflects the team. The manager reflects the team. The manager is actually the top of the table. The manager is the most important person. It's more important than anything else. That's why he gets paid $15 million a year. The mentality of the team does not reflect the captain. It reflects the manager. The way the team plays reflects the manager. Whether the team wins or loses ultimately falls on the head top of the manager. I've watched football as long as you guys have. It has never been the captain's fault. It's always been the manager. And guess who chose him to begin with? Arteta. So when we get to the actual bare bones of it, as much as people low-hanging fruit, I think especially because you guys also know that Arteta's not going anywhere, you're trying to find other things that are the reason. The reason why Martinelli is here still is because of Mikel. He doesn't want to replace him. If he did, he'd be out. When Arteta wanted a new goalkeeper, that goalkeeper was gone. If Arteta actually wanted a better attacking mid, he would get one. He doesn't. So it falls on Arteta. It's not about Odegaard being the captain. Who chose him? You guys are stopping at Odegaard, I think, because you want low-hanging fruit. You need it to be a different reason other than Mikel. It's Mikel. If you don't like the captain, then it's the manager. It's also the players because they keep voting him in. So you're just running into a wall and hitting your head and you're not making, it's like you're not getting it. You just keep running into the same wall. Crazy to me. No excuses. You wanted Noni. You got Noni. You better win something with him or P45. Arteta is untouchable. Let's see. Unless the locker room says so, you can't take the armband off Odegaard. Sure, I prefer Rice. He leads the room anyway, but you can't disrupt the team by publicly doing that to an important player. And his teammates don't see him as the problem. I remember there was a moment where somebody was saying, oh my God, I just know that they hate Odegaard so much. They don't even listen to him, only for like 2 days later for Declan to say that was the exact opposite. They listen to everything and they think he's a wonderful captain. You guys don't know what the fuck is going on behind closed doors. They actually rate Odegaard. So he's not getting stripped of the captaincy. And that's not going to be the difference between us winning and losing. It's going to be the decisions that the manager makes. And if you tie that up with the captaincy, fair enough, but it still falls on Mikel Arteta. It's always been the manager. It's the reason why they get sacked. A captaincy change is not going to change anything. And to be honest, Arteta, not even Arteta, Declan Rice is the type of person that leads no matter what, just like Xhaka led no matter what. Xhaka was actually the captain, really, but he couldn't be captain because he got the thing with Crystal Palace. He was meant to be the captain. Odegaard was the captain in name. Xhaka was leading from behind the scenes. We all knew that. Well-known thing. Xhaka left. Declan has taken that role. It is what it is. Like, you guys need to move on. Let's see. Is it fair to criticize Arteta, but why we usually crash out on Havertz without mentioning Arteta? No, I mention Arteta all the time. It's not a we. It's not a we. You can't add me in that, because when it comes to Havertz, it's not about me hating Havertz. It's about the fact that he's even here to begin with, and that's a Mikel thing. So I think a lot of people mention that, actually. A lot of people that I know that do not rate Havertz. It's not about Havertz specifically. He should never have been at Arsenal Football Club at all. But Arteta made this executive decision to have this vanity signing, and it's derailed us since then, because he was supposed to come in to play left center mid and he doesn't. Now he plays striker, and we risked our season on him playing striker. It's just a lot, you know? So at the end of the day, like, it all comes back down to Mikel. And I've said that for a long time. It's not about Havertz. Like, he does frustrate me, but he shouldn't be here. Like, he really shouldn't. We should have left him at Chelsea. Let's be real. Let's see. Arteta cost the league in one of our campaigns. Odegaard was in his best form of his life. I think we've wasted a couple of players' best seasons. We may never see those peaks again. I think Saka had one of those seasons. Gabriel's had one of those seasons. Odegaard's had one of those seasons. And it's because something else was not there. We just can't seem to get all the pieces together at once. And again, a lot of it comes down to the manager. Tony Adams never played with an attack like we had. Tony Adams never had a manager like Mikel Arteta. He had George Graham and he had Mikel Arteta. He had Thierry Henry, Ian Wright, Vieira, players like that in front of him. It's not the same thing. Adams went to prison and they didn't take the armband off him. He needs to pipe down before a ball's been kicked, even though he's a legend. So there's been plenty of players that have had the armband at Arsenal, and I've never sat there in Mikel. I did not rate Mikel at all. He had a captain's armband at one point, and I still blamed Arsene for not having a good enough defense and having, soft attackers. At the end of the day, of course, the captaincy does make a difference. 100%. I think in terms of the mentality of the team and all that kind of stuff, but I think it's still a smaller percentage than the tactics the manager puts through and recruitment. To me, those two things are the most important things. Let's see. But Tony Adams, it doesn't take away from what he was as a player. I think this whole element of, if a legend of the club says it's true, I think is a little bit naive, but you guys don't want to, as long as they're saying what you feel, then you agree with it, and that's fine. I just disagree with the whole the captaincy being, because I also don't think the people that are saying you should strip him of the captaincy also will not say that 100% they believe that we would have or will win things if he is stripped, because they know that that's not really what it's about anyway. Without that, Bergkamp, Henry, Pires, Ljungberg attack, we wouldn't have won the leagues we did. To win leagues, you need that lethal forward line. So is Arteta shit or is the squad shit? It can't be both. It's not about it. Well, Arteta's not shit and the squad's not shit. And I think that's kind of why the conversations around Arsenal are so difficult to have, because nobody should say that Arsenal are shit, because we are not. And Arteta is also not a shit coach. Those two things are not true. You don't finish second and, improve and all that kind of stuff and be shit. We are not shit. Um, we are, I feel like 2 to 5% away from where we need to be in order to do the things that we want to do, which is way more frustrating than when we were in 8th. When we were in 8th, we were shit, so it was kind of like we just accepted it. We're shit, we're 8th, whatever, but we're so close, but we keep kind of repeating the same mistakes. And so I think the squad needs more talent, but I also think Mikel sabotages us. Not necessarily, it's not really on the pitch as to me as it is when he makes these big decisions to bring in players like Madueke and Havertz, and they end up taking the spots of, like, if you replace Havertz and Madueke with Rodrigo, and let's just name some random fucking person. Let's say Marmouche, and because you could have gotten Marmouche for about the same. You guys tell me if I'm wrong about that, but let's say Marmouche and let's not say Rodrigo. Let's say you guys like Leao, maybe. So what y'all doing? So if you had replaced those two players with those two players, some of the issues that we had over the years probably wouldn't exist. We probably had score goals against Aston Villa, home or away in one of those seasons. We probably would have scored against Bayern. You know what I mean? So I think my problem with Mikel is more these big decisions that he makes off the pitch that inevitably end up hurting us on the pitch because he has these vanity projects that don't end up actually fixing what we need fixing. My second problem with Mikel is he's scared. And so where he's brave in bringing in Havertz and Madueke, he's scared to play a more fluid attacking system that leaves more gaps at the back, but would give us more dominance going forward. So it's nuanced. It's not, Arteta's a really good coach. And I think the most frustrating thing is if he had come in and been pragmatic from the beginning, I probably wouldn't be that upset because you showed me who you are. You're a pragmatic manager. But because he's become more pragmatic over the years and has kind of stripped us of the style of play that we played in 22-23 that was more fun and more dangerous, I think that's what gives me more pause on him too, is top managers are not scared. Top managers, elite managers, world-class managers are not scared. They take risks. They play good attacking football. They focus more on hurting the opposition rather than keeping the opposition from hurting us. And where I thought he was moving into that elite category after the 22-23, I actually file him more into the type of manager that would be good for like a Brentford or a Sociedad, the type of club that has less resources but wants to get close to or into Europe. He's not giving off the smell of an elite manager at the minute, but he is a really good coach, and I would never take that away from him. Because it's not about him being shit, and this team is not shit at all. But is it missing a couple of things? Yes, and we've been missing those couple of things for a while now. So, Arteta is a good coach, but he has a fatal flaws that hold him back. Granted, every coach has his flaws, but Arteta gets in the way of him. Arteta losing aura. Arteta is just overcautious. He does feel overcautious, but I just don't think I don't think football is like that different than it was like back in the day. I think the principles are usually the same, even though we have these we go from false nine to the true nine, we go from the 4-4-2 to the 4-3-3. We go into more transitional styles and more possession styles. I still feel like at its core, you need really top quality attackers, you need a stout defense, and you need an elite manager to win things. And I think about the elite managers down the line. I don't remember ever feeling like they were scared. I feel like the more scared managers are like the Moyes and those types, the ones that like to batten down the hatches to keep the score down. And I feel like we've taken on some of those traits, and we should not be taking in those traits. There's nothing wrong with having a great defensive bedrock. I will never be the person that says that our defense is not important. It is important. It is. And the best iteration of Arsenal that I know of had a world-class defense. So I'm not going to be hearing all this, oh, we just need to be wide open and have attack and fuck the defense. No. But we focus so heavily on the defense. Now the attack is waning. And we've waited so long that I don't know if we can catch up. And then Arteta has this, like you said, this overcautious thing, but I don't know of any elite coaches that are overcautious. If anything, they're super confident, borderline arrogant. And I don't know if I feel like Arteta has that. But yeah, we need a free attacker, no defensive duties. We don't know how Gyökeres is going to perform. I don't think Martinelli or Trossard are good enough. That heaps everything on Saka, and he's just coming off of a bad injury from the workload. There's a big question mark over Madueke. I think it's not even about Gyökeres. I think you can pretty much bank on Gyökeres scoring between 15 and 20 goals for Arsenal. Period. Like, I don't think there's a world where he cannot score more than Havertz in Havertz's best season. But so to me, he's not really that big of a question mark, if I'm honest. The biggest question mark is Madueke, because you brought him in under this guise of him being a backup to Saka, and then you pulled the rug out from underneath us and did exactly what we knew you were going to do if you have a brain. He's going to play a lot more, and he's only played on the left in preseason. Only Dowman has really come in for Saka. Really, everybody else has come in on the left. And so Madueke on the left is a huge question mark because we needed a superstar left wing. And up until this point, Madueke has not given off superstar kind of vibes. He's more giving off like good player if in the right system, in the right environment. Gyökeres is not really that big of a question mark to me. Feed him, he will score. He's a grown up. Even if he scores half of the amount of goals he scored in Portugal, he's going to score more than enough for us. The biggest question is Madueke, because I do believe that left wing needs to be putting up the type of numbers that Saka puts up or somewhere around it. Madueke would be very useful for us. A good coach and an elite coach who is a winner are different. And they are different. And I feel like we've been in this kind of era with Mikel for a while now, where is he a good coach or is he an elite coach? They banked on him being a generational coach. And for a minute, it looked like he could have been that. But as time has gone on, I'm finding myself questioning that quite a bit, if not very much so on this side of he's probably not. So yeah, because I don't know any elite coaches that win things that are basically afraid of their own shadow. I'm not worried about Madueke, to be honest. He will be more useful than Martinelli and Trossard. I don't know if useful is what we need, though. I feel like we need more than useful. I feel like we need superstar, and we didn't get that. So yeah, but he'll definitely probably be better than Martinelli. I agree with you guys on that. I just don't think that, and I don't think it's hard to be better than Martinelli, if I'm honest. I know that sounds mean, but at this stage, if Madueke comes in and has a cameo and it was just like almost ground fucking breaking, it's more because of how bad Martinelli is, I feel. Hey Jess, do you think Arteta will trust Wanyeri more this season in a central role? And who do you think is the first alternative if Odegaard can't play? It's Ethan. It's Ethan. I think once you basically don't get Eze, because once you basically don't get Eze because of Ethan and you put that out there, I don't think there's a world where you can play Trossard or Havertz in the right center mid if Odegaard cannot play there without heavy backlash. And preseason, if it gives you any indication of where people are going to play, which I do think it does, the only player that really played in that position was Ethan. And so does that mean he's going to trust him more? There was pretty much a layup where Odegaard was out for like 2 months and he didn't really use him there. So, and I don't know how injured Odegaard is going to be. I don't know how likely it is that he'll snatch Odegaard out. But I do think that, like, I know it's early on in the season, so it won't happen. But once we get into like the throes of the Champions League and we're playing in domestic cups and stuff, I want to see Ethan start the domestic cups. I want to see him play against the Leeds and the Burnleys and the Wolves and the West Hams and teams like that. You know, I just think that it needs to be more preemptive and not so much reactive. It needs to be something that's done without you needing a major injury to Odegaard to consider it. And then if we're winning games, hopefully we win games by like 3, 4 goals. We can take Odegaard off at the 70th minute, the 60th minute, and just bring Ethan on. But I think Ethan will get less time at right wing, and so all his minutes are going to have to come centrally. And so we'll see. But if he starts playing Havertz and Trossard there like he did the season prior, he's gonna have this. It's not gonna be nice because then Eze could have played those minutes. Because the whole reason you guys are putting out there that you didn't bring Eze is because you believe in Ethan. So don't renege on it. Because I don't forget shit. I don't forget anything. So I will be on his head top from LA. I don't know how much of a on his head top I can be, but I'm not going to let it go. Could have had Eze. So, you know, useful is explaining why manager needs to be sacked. Let's see. Can someone explain to me why we are selling Zinchenko? I mean, I think it's pretty simple. He's been replaced multiple times. He was replaced by an 18-year-old, and as well as we needed a forward, and Arteta went out there and spent 37 million on another left back. I think that's if Tomiyasu was fit enough, Tomiyasu would have been playing ahead of him. Arteta, for some reason, does not trust Zinchenko, and I think Gabriel said something pretty interesting a couple months ago, and I think it was around the time that maybe Miles was signing his new deal, or maybe like around, Miles had came off his really good season, and Gabriel had said something about he feels so safe with Miles back there and he trusts him implicitly. And I think there was an element of distrust with Zinchenko because he had so many big fuck ups. Whether it was not sticking with the line, whether it was, losing the ball, possession, easy possession, losing the ball. We saw that multiple times. And so, I think ultimately it ran its course with Zinchenko. Now, is there a world where Zinchenko could still be utilized under Mikel? Probably, but Arteta doesn't want to do that. Once Arteta has made it up in his mind that you're no longer useful to him, or whatever position you were playing, you can no longer play it, you're gone. So I think it's pretty easy to see why Zinchenko is being replaced and why he's being let go. And I hope he does find somewhere else to go. And if we recoup 10 million, then we recoup 10 million. I really don't care. But an 18-year-old snatch your chain. Like, I don't know. He was playing Tierney in front of him. Arteta doesn't want him anymore. When Arteta ices you out, there's no question about why he's doing it. He doesn't want you here anymore. Don't you remember Ben White having a proper go at Zenny? Yes. It was against Nottingham Forest. We played Nottingham Forest away from home, and we were up 2-0. He did it twice, but I think the time where Ben White got onto him was against Nottingham Forest, and he didn't hold the line. I remember Saliba had a mare and let Awani knock him off the ball, and they kicked it in the back of the net, and we had to fucking clutch for like 10 minutes after being 2-0 up comfortably. And he also fucked up at Anfield. And didn't hold the line, and Salah got the ball and just blammed in the back of the net. So yeah, I do remember that. And why is there a question around Zinni at this stage? Like, I think a lot of the Zinni stuff is very much so built around the last time that we played good football, because people skipped over the back end of 23-24 and go straight back to 22-23, and they feel like there's somewhere for him to be in that, but he's played post 22-23, and those vibes have never really come back. So I just think we've gone past that, really. I was in this chat telling people our transfer business is over, and no one believed me. I don't know why the fans hold on to players that aren't good enough for our ambitions. Anfield game is what killed Zinchenko. With Eze, he is a left attacking midfielder. That profile is just simply not what we require. I would prefer a left wing than Madueke, Trossard and Martinelli, and that's what we need. Corey, I kind of agree with what you're saying in terms of he's a left attacking midfielder. I've kind of said that over and over, and I think it fell on deaf ears because, again, going back to our previous conversation, people want to Odegaard out the team so badly that I think they deluded themselves into thinking that Eze was going to play right center mid or we are going to change our system to suit him. But we have a right center mid and we have a left center mid. And Eze tends to veer off into left-hand side. And that's actually why I wanted him a lot more, maybe than other people. It was because our left-hand side is fucking dead. And any combination of Saka, Dalman, Ethan, Odegaard is going to be good enough. The left-hand side, there's no combination that's good enough. Marino, Martinelli, Trossard, Marino, Trossard, Rice, Martinelli. There's no combination on that side that's creative, that unpicks locks, that's anything, So that's actually the reason why I wanted Eze, and I actually think we did need him is because we actually cannot suffer another season of our left center mid options being, no offense to him because I love him down and I'll defend him with my life, Rice and Marino. The reality is we probably could have used Eze and a left center mid, or sorry, Eze and a left wing. If we had had the unprecedented summer that we were meant to have, that's what we should have had. No Madueke and Gyökeres, and they acted like it was impossible. We're just, yeah, whatever, man. We play with 2-8s, so Eze would be good for us. We do play with 2-8s. I don't know why people have not grasped the fact that we play with 2-8s and a 6. We do not play with a 10. We haven't played with a 10 in a million years. 2-8s and a 6, a very rigid and consistent system. We did play around with the 10 a little bit in preseason with Ethan, but that quickly dissipated as we got closer to the season because we play with 2-8s and a 6. Eze would have been perfect for the left center mid role. And there's even a world where you could have played Eze at left center mid and played Rice at right center mid. I would not have been upset by that either. There's a world where you could have played Eze and Ethan. There's a world where you could have played Odegaard and Eze. There was room for Eze as long as your left center mid options are Rice and Marino. But they said Ethan was enough. So is the squad at 25 players? If so, no more space. Tell people you're not going to register them. That's what other big teams do. This is what I'm saying. They don't want it enough. They don't want it enough. I know that's, but we made fun of Chelsea for doing that. I'm like, well, Chelsea are on our head tops now. So now what? Them being aggressive and being desperate, I feel like is why they're right behind us in less time than it took us to get to where we're at. You have 25 players. Don't register some of them. That'll force their agents to find them somewhere to go in January. You're not going to get Eze because Samuel Lokonga is not going anywhere. You're not going to get Eze because Fabio Vieira is not going anywhere. What do you mean? I don't get it. So I don't believe in all this. Well, we have 25 players who don't have space. Do not register some of them. The fact that we have not gotten what we needed in the first team, especially on the left, does it justify the concerns fans had when we prioritized squad players first? Yes. Being upset early on in the window because we were just only moving on like Norgard and Mascara and Kepa, justified. Being upset that we spent the amount of money and prioritized Madueke, justified. Like those things were not just out of the blue. People were, you guys need to just wait for the window to be over. The priority, the order does not do the priority and all this kind of stuff. The priority for Arsenal does align with the order because we always run out of money and then we need to sell. I would have preferred to be in a situation right now where we had Rodrigo or whoever plus Gyökeres and Zubimendi, and we had to sell to buy Norgard, Mascara, and Kepa. If we needed 30 million from Fabio Vieira and Reece Nelson and Sambi or whoever, and Trossard or whoever to get those 3 players, I would have preferred that. I would have preferred that because the priority is the players that you went and got with the money that you had available. and you did prioritize those backup signings over a player that would have upgraded your attack. The priority was to get the backup players, make sure you get Zubimendi over the line and get Gyökeres, and then try to galaxy brain with Madueke. And all of that was justified. All of that was justified. Being upset about Madueke, justified because now we're sitting here. Of course, we have 2 weeks left. The window is not technically closed, but they're starting to drip feed. They're okay with the squad and they're happy with what they did. And Arteta's happy with what he has. And Ethan is good enough. No Eze. And we need to sell Trossard in order to get some. All that shit was justified because we know our club. It doesn't come from nothing. When I hear somebody say that um there's no pattern to assume that our window is over, I know people are just talking out of their ass. I know people are just talking out of their ass. They're talking out of their ass. Of course there's a pattern. Why do you think people are upset? It's because we know we've seen this before. Our selling tactics stink, but we all know we can only get rid of players if they mutually rip up the contract. We were gaslit with the Eze briefs. That's crazy. I thought we had just sold him. We have to trust Ethan. We will never see how good he'll become if you're spending 70 million on a creative midfielder. Okay. We'll see. I can't believe people thought there was more business to be done after signing Gyökeres. That's crazy. Well, they had met the requirement. Like, this is the problem. You know how I think the KSC are incredibly uh on the nose, like very they don't have any nuance or gray area to them. And once they say, okay, well, you said at the beginning of the window that you wanted a striker and a winger and you wanted these backups in Zubimendi. Well, you've got that. Oh, and by the way, we reached our spend cap of 200 million. Why would you ask us for more money when you haven't sold anyone? You know, if that's what KSC are probably saying, you got a winger, but they're not doing the football part of it. They're thinking you got a winger, you got a striker, we spent 200 million, don't you have enough? So like Arteta going back to them and being like, yeah, but I need Eze. They're just gonna be like, well, didn't we give that what's his name? Ethan Evan, what is his name? Oh, didn't you just give him a big contract? Why don't we just play him? You know, like once they reached that 200 million and they got the striker and the winger, they were done. And that's why you can't get Madueke. You have to go get the better player. You have to do that because then maybe you could sell to get somebody else, but you will have gotten what you needed. But prioritizing Havertz or Madueke before you get the actual player always leaves you with, Kudus going to West Ham and then ending up at Spurs instead of ending up at Arsenal. It always gets you as a going to Spurs instead of coming to us. That's how it works. They're so literal. You said all we need is a striker and a left wing or a winger, whatever. And they got you that. So now they're like, well, why would you need more money? Do you know why Mikel's asking us for money? I don't understand why he's asking me for more money. He got everything he needed. Unprecedented. We bought 6 players. They don't know that the 3 of the 6 players that we bought are backups. Like they don't know that shit. They think they spent 200 million. That's a huge window and we got a striker and a winger. They're very literal. They got what they needed. And to be fair to them, I actually don't think they're the biggest culprit here. I don't, because I think this whole idea that like, of course, we want them to push more and they have a limit to their ambition and their ambition is not that high. But it's not like we did everything that we need. Like, it's not like Arteta didn't have any role to play here in getting Madueke over someone else. So, Tim Lewis, he's an op, that's for sure. But the Cronkies are like, the fuck? We spent 200 million and you got a striker. We got that Vic, yeah, you got Jokera, so what was he upset about? Like, Come on, you guys. Why wasn't it made clear at the time that Eze was dependent on Ethan's future, who Ornstein said was always going to stay? Do you think he was used to stop the Madueke anger? Okay, you guys are starting to ask the right questions, which I like, because I'm like, we need to stop thinking like we need to actually not even start thinking like anything, just start thinking. The thinking caps need to go on. We need to charge them at night and then put them on in the morning. They didn't mention Ethan before because it's a fucking lie. Ethan is a great cover up for a PR link that came out to, like you said, stop the Madueke anger. If you say we're going to go after somebody that the entire fan base wants, like what they did with Isak 2 years ago when we went out against Bayern, it tamps down all of the anger. It tamps it down, so they've never said that Eze was dependent. They said it wasn't dependent on shit. They just said Eze is separate of everything and we're going to make an approach. And we didn't make no approach. And now they're doing the Ethan thing. Ethan didn't have anything to do with this. Ornstein said Ethan was always going to stay. He wasn't going anywhere. Did you guys feel like Ethan was going anywhere? No. So it's like you get fed one lie, like the first lie is well, I could go way back, but let's say the first big lie. The first big lie was Madueke was a backup. Some of y'all ate that shit up. Oh, they said it was a backup. He's backup. Of course he's backup. That turned out to be a lie. Now I'm like, what show is that? Is that Phil? Is that Dr. Phil or is that Maury? But it's like that turned out to be a lie. Then they were like, yeah, Madueke is not a backup anymore. We told you that before, but we lied. But it's okay because we're going to go get Eze. It's not dependent on anything. We're making our approach. You ate that shit up. So then when people were like, we're not going to get Eze, people were sitting up there on their high horse talking about, yeah, well, they said we're getting Eze. So what are you guys upset about? As long as we get Eze, doesn't matter if we got Madueke because we're going to get Eze. That turned out to be a lie. Oh, we lied about that shit. But we're going to sell now and we're going to bring in a left wing. Rodrigo at that on a loan. Yeah? Oh, why are you guys mad? We didn't need Eze. They're saying that we need to sell. And once we sell Trossard, we're going to go get Rodrigo on a loan. Can't wait for that to turn out to be a lie because they feed you a lie, tell you it's a lie, and then feed you something else. And you're still listening. Not necessarily you, Abdira, but just in general. Like, how many of these little lies do they need to feed you and then be debunked like in 5 minutes for you to realize that they just string you along until the window closes? Then Arteta tells you he's happy with everything. Hopefully we won a couple of games, then you guys forget that they were told all these fucking lies. Especially after last summer, I really don't understand how people are still falling for the shit. They quite literally started out that window talking about fucking Isak and Olise. And then we went Sesko, Nico Williams to Raheem Sterling. Like, hello? And you guys just let the window close because they threw you a Raheem Sterling on the last day. And he said he was going to show him the best of us, either show the best of him or whatever the fuck. And you guys were like, yeah, cool. That makes sense. No. We scored 91 goals last season, so what are you mad about? All right, Jim. All right. This club is full of nonsense. Arsenal ain't finishing second this time. Also, Spurs will get Eze cheaper than 70 million we were told he cost us. I still can't deep that Spuds can end up with Eze, Savio, Kudus, and Kulum. It's almost like every other team is like stocking up on lots of attackers, but Arsenal can't even get, like, they can barely get 2 over the line without getting a nose fucking bleed. It's almost like the league is telling you that you need better attackers. The standard of defense in this league has gone off of a cliff over the last couple of seasons. We were just talking about this the other day, but the defensive quality has gone off of a cliff because you have managers like Sean Dyche and Big Stan, these guys are not in the league anymore. The ones that would just sit back and do a nasty block and try to stop you from scoring, hit you or hurt, stoke you to death. Teams don't exist anymore. You got Burnleys and teams like that coming up trying to play good football, and so they're getting slapped. They're getting slapped. There's no defensive teams anymore, and so let me know if you guys are seeing me or not. Because if you're not, I'm just gonna wait because this is important. Okay, I'll wait for a second. See. Can you guys see me? Yeah, you guys should be able to see me. It's back. Okay, so this is important. So we were talking about this the other day, and the defensive quality in this league has gone down. And somebody said that, I forget who said it, but somebody was saying on Twitter that the Premier League is now like the Bundesliga. It's not like it was a couple of seasons ago where you had like good defensive, like solid defensive units that you had to come up against. You are going up against Bundesliga like defenses. Everybody wants to play good football. Nobody wants to say, you know what, fuck it, we're Stoke. They're not trying to do that anymore. So now like all this like defensive solidity, it's not as important when you're going to slap every team with 4 goals, that. So the teams that are actually going to do better are teams that have good attacks. And there's a reason why Liverpool left their defense to the last couple of weeks. There's a reason why City didn't go out there and get good center backs, and they went out there and they got Aït-Nouri. And Aït-Nouri, he's not the type of defender that you're getting to defend. You're getting him to be more attacking. And this is after they bought Marmoush in January. This is after they got, Shirky and Reinders. They have prioritized their attack. Liverpool prioritized their attack. Spurs prioritizing their attack, bringing in 3 attackers in one window. Manchester United, like fuck, they need a midfielder and defenders, but they're prioritizing their attack. Arsenal are the only ones not getting the message. You didn't need 2 DMs and another center back. You could have left Norgard and Kepa and Mascara to these last 2 weeks, but you needed to bring in like 3 attackers. You needed that. You needed that bad, and they just couldn't do it. They couldn't get it done, and we're going to see that it's having a good attack is going to equalize having a good defense, because as long as you can score 3 or 4 goals against these really bad attacks, it's not going to matter if you concede a goal. It's not going to matter. But Arsenal are coming up against deep blocks every single week because nobody's going to be wide open against us because they know it works. If we struggle to score, we're in trouble, so because it's not like we're really like we're going to go to Anfield and wipe them, or we're going to go to the Etihad and wipe them. So it's not the same as it was a couple of years ago, and you have to evolve. A couple of years ago, if your defense was shit, you were fucked. If a couple of years ago, your defense was not good, you were done. It was because this league was unforgiving. Now, it doesn't matter. Because did you not see these teams? They cannot defend for their lives. They're so bad. The league is changing. And I told you guys this at the beginning of the window, that football is evolving away from position, stiffy ball, and people are just playing free-flowing, attacking football on transition. Free-flowing transition ball. We need to get with it. We need to get with it, because that good defensive record is all good and well and fine. But if you can't score goals freely and you can't slap the small teams 4-0, 3-0, you're going to suffer. Everton have had a top 5 defense for the past 5 seasons and finish in the bottom half in those years. Attack is the meta. Hinata was ice skating yesterday. Martinelli will get locked up by Frimpong. It's dark. Arteta won't even revert back to that, though. He won't, because I think that would. He was talking a lot of shit the other day too about we need to play with joy and play with energy. And I was like, well, you start. You start. You play with joy and energy. By telling Saka he doesn't have to do fullback shifts, letting us attack through the middle, free flowing football. You start, because you're the one who needs to listen to that shit, because it comes from you. Unlike some of you guys that are being disingenuous saying, oh, our playing style and everything comes down from the captain. No, it fucking doesn't. It comes from Mikel Arteta. Football changes quick. Arsenal take about 5 to 7 years to catch up. By then, it's changed again. I mean, you're not wrong about that because football is clearly changing, and we're still trying to perfect the stiffy system that we never want anything with, while everybody else is saying, "Fuck that shit. Let's just go play on transition and just have good attackers." Arsenal would eat down in the league now because there's no good defenses and you don't have to have a great defense either. You just have to score 5 or 6 goals, you know? Um, now, probably the thing that happened to us, to be honest, was us getting Jokeris and not Sesko. And not just because of like the obvious reasons, like Jokeris is better than him and all that kind of stuff. And it forces him to play Havertz, but it's going to force Arteta to have to change his system without like any other prompt from anything else. I think the internet went down again. I hate this. And yes, I'm hardwired into the modem and it still does this and it drives me crazy because I pay the most I've ever paid for internet and it still acts like this. And this is like my whole job. So I'm just going to give it a second. Hopefully he comes back soon. Da, 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 da. I don't know if it's coming back, guys. It's looking dark. It's dark. Can you guys see me or no? Can you guys see me or no? Okay, I think I'm back. But yeah, football changes quick, and I'm glad that Jokeris is. I'm glad that Jokeris is kind of going to have to force Arteta to change the system. Let's see. I have Verizon 5G home internet and it's great. I'm going to have to change because I have Spectrum and I have the highest and I'm actually plugged into the modem and everything and it still goes down and it just drives me crazy. Cuz obviously it stalls the fucking show. Looking at how other teams are moving, it looks like it's going to be one of those top 4 in a cup run season. Liverpool were poor defensively, but they scored 4 and they won. We would have struggled against a bad Bournemouth that only really had Semenyo because their whole defense was decimated and they were not good on the day at all. But Semenyo, it's good for him because of, the racial abuse that he suffered. I'm so glad he scored that brace because that was like the best fuck you to that guy. But we can't afford, I guess what I'm saying is we can't afford to be poor defensively. I feel like that's kind of where we're at. We would have found a way to draw for sure. I mean, if Semenyo would have scored those 2 goals against us, it would have either ended 2-2 or they would have scored a third. Like, it's so bad how I watch the games. Well, I don't watch Man City. I refuse to watch Man City. If they're not playing against a Big 6 team, I don't watch them because it's never a competitive game. It's just them, how many goals will they score? But ultimately, like, if I ever watch them play or I expect them to win. But I think there's like an element of Arsenal could slip up. I think that's why most people watch our games because they know we could slip up against these small teams. So let's see. I do think our season, in terms of where I'm going to start judging us really harshly, is going to start against Leeds. And that sounds weird because we should just be beating Leeds. But if we are better than we were last season, it's to me, it's not gonna really matter about the big 6 games. Like, remember in 22-23, I think we lost to United away, we barely beat them at home, we lost to City both both of them, we beat Liverpool at home, we drew to them away. It was a mixture of results. I know we beat Chelsea both home and away, um, and we beat Tottenham both home and away, but it was a mixture. The games that really caught us out were West Ham away, Southampton away, um, games like that, you know? So I think, and we still have a little bit of that could lose to the smaller teams. So I think Leeds is going to be the game I'm going to be looking at very closely because it should not be close. It should be a formality. It should be a failed hate watch in the first 20 minutes of that game. If it takes us 30 minutes to muster a shot or we see the deep block come and then we're struggling, I'm going to be mad because this is what it's about. The small games, we should be winning home and away easily. You know, we can fight it, scrap it out with the top 6 teams and we'll win some and we'll lose some, but you really can't be dropping points to Bournemouth. You really can't be dropping points at home to Everton. You know, you really can't. Um Losing to United will honestly drive me insane. I don't care. Of course it will, and it should because they're pretty much our biggest rival outside of Spurs. I know for some people it's Chelsea, but for us old heads, it's Manchester United. Um, but it's such a crapshoot that I'm kind of open to all possibilities. I could see us losing, I could see us winning, I could see us drawing, and our season never really hinges on that game. Right now, under Mikel Arteta, it hinges on those smaller games where we come up against mid blocks and we shit the bed. So, yeah, United will never die. Um, where are the comments coming up? Okay. United hate will never die. Says lag again. I'm gonna end the stream there, guys, because we're getting really bad internet problems. I'll wait so I can say bye properly, but obviously the internet hates me very badly today. Yeah. So if you guys can hear me, you guys probably can't, but we'll talk on the let's see. We'll talk on the next one. I think it just kind of came back, but yeah, we'll talk to you guys. I'll talk to you guys after the United game. Love you guys. Bye.
After what that Greek Suge Knight, yeah.
Who wants to lay in the bed? I'm gonna pee. Yeah. I do like you. I do like you. What are you doing outside, buddy? You guys want a friend? Yeah, buddy. Buddy. You're so sweet. I'm sweet? How do you know? How do you know? How do you know? How do you know? Beautiful little dog. You're a handsome, Maggie. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Yes. Beautiful. Yeah, I'm really so you are really cute. Yeah. And with mom. You are with your mom. And I'm safe. And you're safe. Come on. Come on, Beth. Now we're better than mom. Yeah. Oh, there. You miss your friend? You miss your friend at the place? Yeah. Look how big your eyes are. They're so beautiful. Why? I need you. Hey, what? Everyone loves you. Everyone loves you. Everyone loves you.
I'm swearing on I should have been water earlier. It all passed off. I can't continue it today. What makes it allowing frozen thunder wind into my home? Over the reasons you can't make to see probably spirit make you doubt area pleasure. Good, I'm very bad teacher. They're home. I doubt it. Separate thoughts. Which we are all now. Charity Organization Society. Well, yes, I like word and some of the others who love to circle in absolutely that's true. The can bring unique improvements to our society. So make a donation. Unfortunately, that's the sketch. I have taken a donation in addition to holding the meeting. Alcohol is urged many countries. And I want to support causes that are close to my heart. And the next one is thinking voting for the next country, they will fire me and bump me up track why. It's there to thousands of shots like cheese. Like a cause to care about. The point is, the next ministry was important to me. And I was particularly legacy. I learned what's in the important. And this is statements right, I said that one. Then too bad. I you be killed. There were nights I expected and prayed not to wake up. Get back to this first seat. I probably just won't tear it. Kept the death on this spaceship. If that still has been the I do when I found how they'll get that thing. Mistake. Cars never picked up the track.
Yes, I she has given
By the time this race runs, we don't mention that the stats,
I
You're right. You must go be careful. Nothing will go wrong now. So special about it. Okay. They come up, you're sitting as a three. But I'm surprised you let me go. Only just right in my stuff. It's just right in the house. She did, not trust me.
This next Saturday. Instead on major extension trails all the way to California.
I've been that in the production in a while. Feed out the feather, here we are, just one full.
Well, you're not seeing big fish. That's great. Now we're not being fun line, New York, Chicago, Southern Ireland, Chicago, Los Angeles. We're the fastest way to get West country. But it's what it's trying to be. And the France does become longer. Because it was not possible. But you'll have to get in the not exactly before we get that point. You better get that point. I thought I promised you to go to the port. Did bring that out there. Bring that out there. But on the top. Okay. You read that. We need the land for the rail. I had just go about the line. You have to build a fraction amount. We may do something with the lines. That's all. Right now, just getting the line. Scrap it. We're going to do that. Let them right back to mine. The nation will be open. That's wrong. Great. So glad you could join me. Did you come today? That was good. Mexico. No. 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 It's more complicated. But you gotta let it fall. Form the slide. Walk. It is.
I don't quite agree.
Exactly. So the farm is here, we're meeting at an hour or so. And I think you should have a look at this. Supposed to bad news. Why do you say that? The thing usually is.
What are you bringing up back down for? I did, but I like to tell you that I didn't want to go to the. But this is what it pays off.
I'll see. This is okay. This is that.
I'm sorry to bash you up here, but at least you don't have to write thinking about it the whole time. I dare say charge into myself. There's a moment when you don't wear up from the moment. It doesn't last long. I like cotton cats. You manage so well to put I like this dark and it's like I like how you show it's complicated. Like some obviously I wish I had like nothing without your. Don't worry, I hope I will have a great lunch. Maybe you can walk around. That's not so bad. Waiting for your work to church. It's from the end of the Christian choir. Yeah, got the top straight from my what? Incredible. How did you know that? I wrote to her. Not the head of your neck. That's great. Not just ready to the front line. Must be falling up. That is just me such a crap. Stop. Very cool. Let's just watch it now. Because you did such an excellent job in the invitation. I will remind you, I don't have to fight. Cheers. Oh, I think we need something on the page. Perhaps we can move this table. Oh, you've done a lot of this. Have you advertised with you your feet over the public bank and then have to call it that you have to. What is it for the whole thing? It is a private law. There are no things to be done. But I don't hear the good sense. I'm happy to be done. I don't think that. Please have a crazy. Or go out. But not that. But I don't know the time of it. From the shelter. I've never been afraid until now. I do not wish for those people to use my social. I could be. We have to say those. The Bible says transgressors will be destroyed. So I'm afraid those who partake of alcohol are destined to fury of heaven. I'll talk to them. I feel that this is poison. For opening their mouths to our cause and to all of the brave the elements join us today. My apologies. God must be done in some They must need to go over here. Don't let it come to me now.
Well, I suppose kids are allowed to travel like anyone else. Yeah, that's even better. I thought I had planned this day.
I don't like it. Then you are to know.
You go and catch last Saturday. I be awkward with myself and everything. All the crowd. All time money and nice about.
I spoke to one for the
Well, very well. I saw her face just to go. She said, she looked up. Hey, what can I do? He bullied you, so.
And sure, I have all the food.
Should have sent a message.
I need, but I get a great tray while you change. Or put that in the office.
We were going to see the third house, probably off.
You don't have to. I think we both know that story. I just really need your call one piece.
Something.
First, I have to do something.
For more, no. Or even the same people that is, we don't want to see like. It's not you, I don't. Hello. So I,
Thank you. Bye.
I didn't know I was still live. My bad.